If I could only do 2 exercises for the rest of my life to get faster, what would they be and why? So these 2 exercises would need to simulate single leg force production. If I only had 2, then that would mean one of them would have to be simulating a short ground contact time, force absorption, and force production, because we need both of those for sprinting. And that's what sprinting is. It's single leg, force absorption to force production. So one of the exercises would need to simulate that. And then the other exercise, I wouldn't necessarily need it to be focused on the force absorption and just the force production, because the first exercise should be able to handle that. And that would have to be some sort of compound weight room movement in order to get very, very strong within that single leg force production. And the positioning of the body and of the lift would kind of need to simulate how the force is being applied into the ground, like you do when you're sprinting. Now, obviously, there are other factors of getting faster, but if I only had 2 exercises for the rest of my life, the first one I'm going to go over, it's not the force absorption and force production within a short ground contact. It's the weight room compound one. So that would be the barbell single leg Bulgarian split squat. This movement is going to be amazing for your single leg force production. And what is also amazing about this specific exercise is a lot of single leg movements are very, very quad dominant. And obviously this is a quad exercise. But what's so amazing about this one specifically is you can use it to target different parts of your leg, like your butt as well, which is probably arguably the most important muscle group for increasing your speed. So you can either use it to target your quad and butt or really just isolate the quad. And yes, the quad is going to be more dominant in the start of your race. In that drive phase, the force production is really being used there. Whereas once you start getting into top speed, your hamstrings start coming more into play with your elasticity. But the reason why I love this exercise so much over all other exercises in the weight room is because, one, you can progressive overload it. All right, it's really easy to track. You can put more weight on the bar each time you come into the weight room, and do your 5x5 and just really get strong within this lift. You can do it explosively. You can go just for strength. There's so many different ways that you can do this exercise, and it will be directly applying to your strength of the force production. All right. It isn't yet going to be directly applied into the force production, which is what the second exercise will help it do, but it will be increasing the strength. And once you start doing things that are requiring force absorption and force production with a short ground contact time, then you're already going to be strong enough to be able to handle that because of this single leg movement. So again, you can progressive overload it. You can be targeting just your quad or your quad and your butt. You can do it with an elevated heel. All right, and then it's going to be targeting also your calf and your Achilles, and you can even do it isometrically. You can hold it in one position. You can do an overcoming isometric with this. So you have the barbell on your back, and you would have those spot racks above you, and you could push up into those that don't move. So it's an overcoming isometric. You can hold it with an elevated heel. There's so many different ways to utilize this exercise to make you faster. So that's got to be the number one weight room exercise for an increase in single leg force production, which is going to be the thing that you want to focus on, especially if you only had one exercise to do in the weight room. And not to mention all the stability that is required to do this exercise. It is extremely taxing to do this exercise. It is not easy. That's why you don't want to go too high a reps. Obviously, if this is the only thing you can do in the weight room ever, then you definitely are going to be wanting to switch up the rep ranges throughout, your different seasons and coming up onto peak season or off season or, rehabbing, all that kind of stuff. But all those muscles that are being worked for the stability to be able to hold yourself in position to then squat down on one leg and then squat back up requires so many little tiny muscles in all parts of your leg that are being strengthened and are definitely going to be helping with, ankle mobility, even ankle stiffness, ankle stability. The entire leg and nervous system is going to get used to, being on one leg and applying a lot of force into just one leg. And if you can't handle balancing on one leg and applying a lot of force on one leg just in the weight room, then don't expect to be applying more force in less time on one leg on the track or on the field or for whatever sport you play. So if we get good at this lift, if this is the lift that we decided we are compounding, progressive overloading, and we are really focusing on this movement, this is going to be the one that'll get you faster. Now, this exercise is great, and it alone will help you get faster. But this exercise is going to be put on steroids if you're able to superset it with some sort of plyometric movement or ballistic or faster movement that's also targeting the same muscles. So we would want to do a single leg, short ground contact, force absorption to force production movement right after this. So you do your barbell Bulgarian split squat, and then you go and do this movement, which if you only have 2 exercises, I wouldn't even say that this is the king of all plyometrics, like the barbell Bulgarian split squat is the king of all compound movements. This one is not the king of all plyometrics, but if I only had 2 exercises, then I would be looking for what is the closest thing you can do to sprinting. Because that would be cheating if I were to say sprinting, all right? You can't, if I only had 2 exercises, it would be too easy to say sprinting, because sprinting is the number one. Sprinting is the king of all plyometrics, king of any exercise that you can possibly do to get faster. But if I can't pick sprinting, then it would have to be the closest thing to sprinting. What simulates sprinting the most? And that would be some sort of single leg bound. It'd be focusing as much as you can on as short of a ground contact as you can, applying as much force in the ground as you possibly can within each bound, and you'd be going for distance, not height. Obviously, if it's a single leg bound, then you could argue that you could do it for height or distance, but either one of those would work. But we want distance because that's horizontal, not vertical force, and vertical force is good for, if you're trying to get better at dunking, but we're trying to get better at horizontal movement, which is sprinting as fast as we can. So we want horizontal single leg bounds, short ground contact, as much force as possible, and we can be supersetting those 2 exercises. I had to go in that last clip. Sorry about the dogs if you heard them in the background, but the important thing that I'm trying to get across here is the barbell Bulgarian split squat is the king of all weight room exercises when it comes to an increase in single leg force production, all right? And that is not going to be usable force production when it comes to sprinting unless we're able to superset it with some sort of ballistic plyometric. And the plyometric that I picked, which obviously you can do anything, you can do triple broad jumps, you can do some sort of pogo. I mean, it doesn't matter, but the one that I picked here is the single leg bound because it simulates sprinting the most. One, because it's horizontal, like I said, and it's single leg, which not a lot of plyos are horizontal and single leg. So this one's definitely a good one. But the good news on that is you can do any exercises you want in the world. You don't have to just pick 2. You can get creative with it as long as it's sticking with the general principles that I've been talking about in this whole video. I would not recommend using dumbbells rather than a barbell for your Bulgarian split squats because it takes so much more energy to hold those dumbbells. I mean, the only real way you could do it is if you're using straps, but even then, that's so much strain on your shoulders and on your arms to be able to hold it, and it's just like a whole different other exercise. It's extremely taxing. You wouldn't even want to go past like 3 reps if you're doing it with dumbbells. It's good if you're just starting out in the gym because then you would just do super light dumbbells, right? That's fine. If you're just starting out, you're not very comfortable in the weight room yet, but if you're comfortable in the weight room, you can squat a lot of weight already, then I would recommend definitely doing the barbell. You can progressive overload it a lot more. You can put on a lot more weight on your back rather than, with dumbbells. So there we go. If I only had 2 exercises to do for the rest of my life, which would be horrible, but those would be the 2, especially because I could probably argue that the single leg bound could really be anything, and I could just start doing it a little bit faster and faster, and that starts getting into sprinting. Or I could do it slower and do it more vertically. You can do them straight leg, like straight leg runs. You see the people do those all the time for warm-ups. Those are a great exercise. But any sort of straight leg, single leg bound, skips for height, skips for distance, these are all single leg, short ground contact, super explosive movements that require you to apply a lot of force into the ground while moving in either horizontally or vertically direction. But there we go. That's what I got for you. Those are my top 2 exercises, minus sprinting. Obviously, I would say sprinting if not. But hopefully you guys learned something in that one. Comment below if you would pick a different exercise and why you would pick that exercise, and I'll respond to you and we can talk about it. But hopefully that was helpful, and I'll see y'all in the next one.